What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your best Par 60 rechargeable par can wash light. As you can see, it comes with the light itself, a mounting bracket and the hardware to attach the bracket, a power cable to power or charge your light, and a wireless IR remote. Now there's many different ways we can have our light set up with or without the bracket. So for instance, without the bracket, we can place the light into a totem stand to illuminate it. All we have to do is lift up the scrim, place the light inside, then lower the scrim back down, and make sure that it's set up to any color or mode we want. We can also use the light without the bracket by placing it right up against the wall for a wall washing setup, so that the light is facing upwards in any mode or color. But another way we can use the light for wall washing is by attaching the bracket so we can angle the light any way we want. So to attach the bracket onto the light, I'm gonna take the included knobs here and the included washers. I'm gonna take two of my washers and place them onto the bolt of the knob. Then I'm gonna feed the knobs into the holes on the side of my bracket and place the last two washers on the other side of the bolts. After that, we're gonna line up the remainder of these bolts here to the screw holes on each side of the light and screw in the knobs to lock it in place. So now that the bracket is attached to the light, there are many different ways we can use it. Like for the wall washing setup we mentioned before, we can angle the bracket downwards, place our light down, then from there you can place the light either a few inches or a few feet away from your wall depending on how you want it to hit your wall. And you can even make further adjustments from there by moving the light up or down until the light is hitting the wall the way you want. Because there's also technically two handles attached to the bracket here, you can even spread them out and use both arms so that the light is sturdy when sitting down on your floor. And like I mentioned earlier, from there we can move the light up or down depending on how we want the light to hit the wall. Another way we can set up our light with the bracket attached is by hanging it onto a truss. To do that, I can take a lighting clamp like our very own LC70, remove the bolt here from our clamp. We're then gonna take the bolt here and run it through the hole in the middle of our arm, then take our lighting clamp and screw it back onto the bolt. For a more secure setup, you can also line up the second arm here, then run your bolt, and then screw the clamp back on. So after we've secured the clamp onto the light, we're then gonna loosen the screw knob here, and then line the clamp up to an open spot on our truss, and then tighten the screw knob to secure the light onto the truss. And because this is a wireless light, we can have it set to any mode or color without having to run any power cables or DMX cables, and we can use either our wireless DMX controller or our wireless remote to control the light from the truss. Now these are just some of the positions we can use with our light, but feel free to experiment with different positions or angles depending on the needs of your setup. So now let's talk about the different ways we can use our light. So I'm gonna go ahead and power our light. Now you'll see that we have two different switches here on the back, one to power on the battery for the light and one to turn on the light in general. Now if you have an older model of this light, you may need to activate both of these in order to use your light wirelessly. Otherwise you can plug in the included power cable and just flip on the power switch. For the more current models, all you'll need to do is flip on the power switch and that will activate the light wirelessly. Now, as soon as we power on the light, you'll see the LED screen light up, showing us the different features. We also have all of these buttons underneath to help us navigate through these different menus. So we have the up and down buttons to go through each one, the enter button to enter the different modes or menus, and then the menu button to go back to a previous page. So let's go through all these different menus one by one. Starting with the DMX menu here, this allows us to set the DMX address for our light, which is helpful when using a DMX controller with the light, but we're gonna circle back to that in a bit. Next, we have the shows menu where we can go through all of the different presets of the light. So we have the auto color mode where the light will switch between the colors automatically. We also have the auto fade where the light will fade in between each color, the auto sudden where the light will pulse between each color, and the auto strobe where the light will strobe between each color. Also, while we're in any of these modes, we can press the enter button and use the up and down buttons to adjust the speed of the color change. Next, we have the sound menu where we can choose between 4 different sound modes. So we have sound mode 1 where the light will automatically switch between each color as soon as there's sound picked up. So for example, the light is actually following my voice and switching between each color, and even when I start to clap, the light automatically starts to switch. Next, we have sound mode 2, where the light will strobe between each color as it picks up sound. Then we have sound mode 3, where the light will pulse between each color when it picks up sound. And sound mode 4, where it will cycle between all of the different sound modes. Also, in any of these modes, we can press enter and adjust the sensitivity of the built-in mic, which will affect how it picks up sound. Next, we have the color menu, where we can either set the light to a custom color or set it to a static color. And we can set all of these colors to different percentages in order for us to achieve the custom color we want. So I can switch between these different colors by pressing the enter button and use the up and down buttons to adjust the percentage. So for example, I'm gonna set the red to 20%, press enter, adjust the green to 50%, press enter to go to blue and set that to about 10%. And I can also use the white, yellow, and ultraviolet colors to customize even further. We also have the static color menu to set the light to any of the 32 preset colors like red, green, blue, etc. So we have the DMX channel menu, where we can set the DMX channel for the light, which we'll circle back to in a bit. The 2.2.4 gigahertz wireless option, so that the light can communicate with our wireless DMX controller. The infrared settings to use our remote with the light. The display backlight. The LCD close time. The fan time, and there's also a restore to factory option. The manual mode to set the brightness of each individual color. The battery option to turn on or off the battery display, and we can also set a background color for our menu. And lastly, we have the help menu that will tell us specific specs for the light. Now, another way we can control our lights is with a DMX controller. To do that, we're gonna make sure that both of our lights are on, and we're also gonna go ahead and turn on our controller. I'm also gonna wanna go ahead and turn on the wireless feature here on my controller as well. Now, to sync our controller to our lights, we need to make sure that they're set to the same wireless DMX signal. So to set that on our controller, we're gonna go to the back here where it says wireless ID, and we can press it to cycle between different colors, but for today, we're gonna set it to red. Next, we're gonna wanna go to the back of our lights here. So with that button, we're gonna set it to the same color that we set to our DMX controller. So in that case, it's gonna be red. You can also raise these antennas on top of your light to strengthen the signal between the lights and the controller. The next thing we're gonna wanna do is go to the settings of each of our lights, go to the DMX channel menu, and select whether we want the lights to be set to 6-channel DMX mode or 10-channel DMX mode. This will help us determine how much control we have over our lights through our controller, and it just depends on what we want to achieve. So let's go with the 10-channel DMX mode so that we have the most control over our lights through our controller. While we're in the settings menu, we can also go to the 2.2.4 gigahertz wireless setting and make sure that's turned on so that our lights can communicate with our controller. Lastly, we're gonna wanna go to the DMX menu on our lights and set our lights to the same DMX address. So for today, let's set them to A001. After we've set the DMX address, we'll know that our lights are communicating with our controller because the wireless DMX signal on our lights will flash green, while the wireless ID light flashes red on our controller. And now we can go through all the different faders to see what they do with our lights. Now, because we set our lights to 10-channel DMX mode, we can use 10 faders on our controller. And if we set it to 6-channel mode, we can use 6 faders. But again, this helps us determine how much control we have with our controller. So starting with fader 1, this acts as the master dimmer to determine how bright we want our light to be. So for today, let's raise that all the way up. Next, we have fader 2 that will control the red LEDs. So the more I raise that, the more that the red LEDs will come through. Next, we have fader 3 to control the green LEDs. So if I raise that, you'll start to see some green. Fader 4 will control the blue LEDs. Fader 5 will bring out the white LEDs. Fader 6 will control the amber or yellow LEDs. And fader 7 will control the ultraviolet LEDs. And what's really cool is that we can use faders 2 through 7 to come up with our own custom color. So for example, I can raise up a little bit of red, some green and some blue, and a little bit of amber and ultraviolet. And now I have a fully customized color. Next, we have fader 8, which will control the strobe for the light. So if I raise that a little bit, you'll see the light start to flash, and the more I raise it, the faster the strobe will go. So now if I press page select on my controller, I can go to faders 9 and 10 to see what those do. Now fader 9 is really cool because it has many different functions that's determined by the value I set fader 9 to. We can tell what value the fader is at by looking at the LED screen on the top corner of our controller. So for example, if I set the fader anywhere between 151 and 200, it will activate the color fade mode. And next we have fader 10, which will control the speed of any mode we set our light to. So for example, while we're in the color fade mode, I can raise fader 10, and now you'll see that the colors will fade faster. One thing I want to point out though is while we set our light to the color select mode, we can use fader 10 to select the color. Now let's say we wanted to use a non-wireless DMX controller to control our lights. We can do that no problem by using some wireless DMX cables. So I'm going to start by taking one DMX cable, plug the male end into the DMX out on my controller. Then I'm going to plug the other end into the DMX in on one of my lights. And now to link my first light to the second light, I'm going to take another DMX cable, plug the male end into the DMX out of my first light, then plug the other end into the DMX in on the second light. And if I wanted to set up even more lights in my setup, I would just follow the same exact steps. So then from there, I'm going to activate scanner 1, raise my master dimmer, and start to bring in some color. You'll see that I have full control over my lights with the controller. Now we actually sell a wireless transmitter that will turn your non-wireless DMX controller into a wireless DMX controller. And from there you can follow the steps to set up your DMX controller to your lights wirelessly. Now another way we can control our lights without using a DMX controller is with the master slave feature. So to start that setup, I'm going to pick which light I want to set to my master light, so I'll go with this one right here. Before I start though, I'm going to make sure that both of my lights are set to the same DMX channel mode by going into the settings, selecting the DMX channel option, and picking between 6 channel or 10 channel mode. For today, let's go with 10 channel mode. So now from here, I'm going to pick which light I want to use as my master light. So for today, let's go with this light here. And from there, I can select which color I want to set it to. But for today, we're going to set it to the color red. Again, make sure that we do this on both of our lights here. So next, I'm going to want to set my lights to the same wireless DMX signal by using the button on the back of the light that says wireless DMX signal. I'm then going to go to the slave light here and select the DMX address. And for today, I'm going to use A001. And then after that, you'll notice that the wireless DMX signal on our master light flashes red, while the wireless DMX signal on our slave light flashes green. And if you want to set up even more slave lights, you're just going to follow the same exact steps. So now on my master light, I can go into any mode or color. So for example, I can go into the sound mode here, select any of the 4 sound modes, and now if I make some sound, you'll see that the master light is picking up the sound while the slave light follows. And this will work for any mode or color we set our master light to. So if I set my master light to the auto color mode, you'll see that the slave light is following and doing the same exact thing. We can also use the master slave feature by setting them up through DMX cables. So to do that, I'm going to take the male end of my DMX cable and plug it into the DMX out on my master light. Then I'm going to plug the other end into the DMX in on the slave light. From here, I'm going to want to set my lights to the same DMX address and the same DMX channel. So again, we'll use A001 as our DMX address, and we'll set both lights to 10 channel DMX mode. So now if I go to my master light and set it to any mode or color, you'll see now that our second light's going to follow. Another way we can control our lights is with the IR remote. So if we go from the top, you'll see that we have the on and off button to turn the bulbs of the light on or off. But keep in mind, if you really wanted to turn the lights on or off, you're going to want to use the switches on the back of the lights. Next, we have the brightness buttons here, so we can make the lights brighter or dimmer. And depending on the mode that the light is set to, this will also control the speed of that mode. Next, we have the buttons that we can use to set our lights to the different colors like red, green, blue, white, amber, or ultraviolet. We also have different combination of colors here. And lastly, we have all the different modes available. So we have the auto mode, the strobe mode. Now because there are different sound modes available, you'll just want to press the sound button until you land on the sound mode you want to use. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your best Par 60 rechargeable par can wash lights. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.